A newborn baby just opened his eyes for the very first time, and the first thing waiting for him on the other side of those hospital doors was gunfire, a street brawl, a jealous ex circling the block, and a grandmother publicly at war with his own mother. I wish I was exaggerating, y'all. I am not. Nevaeh Akira has officially given birth to Blueface's son, and while the entire internet is passing around that picture of Blueface cradling baby Jonathan Jr. with the biggest, softest smile we have ever seen on that man's face, behind that smile is a storm so layered and so reckless that I had to drop everything and get on this camera immediately. Because what unfolded in the days surrounding this birth is not normal. It is not okay. And when I walk you through the details everybody keeps skating past, the double knockdown on the same night, the location drops, the $160,000 streaming night, and the woman who allegedly popped up at a baby shower she was never invited to, you are going to understand why half the internet is screaming one single word at Nevaeh right now: run. Stay right here, because we are going through all of it, and by the end of this video you will never look at this situation the same way again. So let's get into the mess, y'all. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the channel, everybody. If you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've been rocking with me, my day ones, my day twos, everybody in between, thank you so much, I appreciate you more than you know. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're feeling the video, and drop your thoughts in the comments because I read them. Now, quick housekeeping, y'all know how it goes, everything discussed here is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Some things are alleged, some things are documented, and the fair use notice is sitting in the description box. With that said, congratulations are in order. Nevaeh and Blueface finally welcomed their baby boy, and when I say finally, I mean finally. It genuinely felt like this child had been cooking for 2 full years. Every week there was a new update, a new live, a new bump picture, a new rumor, and the baby just kept not arriving. But he is here now. Jonathan Jr. is on the planet. And before we touch one drop of the drama, because there is a mountain of it, I want to sit in the good part for a moment, because the good part is real. Blueface shared the moment he held his newborn son for the very first time, and y'all, you cannot wipe the smile off that man's face. I have covered Blueface for a long time. I have seen him angry, I have seen him performative, I have seen him trolling, I have seen him checked all the way out. I have rarely seen him soft. And in that clip, holding Jonathan Jr., he is soft. Whatever you think about Blueface, and believe me, we are going to get into what there is to think, a man holding his brand new son and grinning from ear to ear is a moment that hits everybody the same. Babies are my weakness, y'all. I fully admit it. I have a tender place in my heart for newborns and I always will. So yes, I smiled at the clip like everybody else did. And let's be honest about who we're looking at in that clip, because context matters here. This is Blueface's third child that we know of, with a third mother. There's Jaidyn Alexis, the mother of his 2 older kids, Javon and Journey, and Jaidyn has survived her own whole war with this man, the breakups, the makeups, the engagement that went sideways, the public humiliations, all of it streamed, all of it monetized. Then there's Chrisean, who gave him Jr. And now Nevaeh, with Jonathan Jr. 3 women. 3 households. 1 man at the center who treats commitment like a costume change. And I don't say that to be cruel, I say it because patterns do not lie. Every woman who steps into Blueface's orbit believes she's the one who finally settles him down. Jaidyn believed it. Chrisean absolutely believed it. And now Nevaeh has a whole newborn anchoring her to that same hope. And remember, this is a man who only recently came home from a jail stint, stepped straight back in front of the streaming cameras, and never let the content machine cool off for one single day. Fatherhood looks beautiful in a 30-second clip. Fatherhood at 3 in the morning, split across 2 other households, with an ex circling the block and a business model built on dysfunction. That's the part the clip will never show you. Congratulations to Nevaeh. Congratulations to Blueface. A healthy baby after all that chaos is genuinely a blessing, and I am glad the baby is here and I am glad mama made it through. And then, y'all. I exhale. Because here is the part that will not leave my mind no matter how many times I replay that sweet little video, this child was born into a storm. That is not an insult, that is a weather report. Within the same window of time that Nevaeh was bringing life into the world around that delivery room was on fire. Shots were flying at a night out just days before. Bodies hit the concrete, and we are going to slow walk through that footage in a minute. Blueface's own mother is out here switching teams in real time. And the ex, has already shown up to one baby-related event uninvited, and if history tells us anything, she is nowhere near finished. So when I say I am happy and worried at the same time, I mean it. I am smiling at the baby and side-eyeing everything around the baby. Both things can be true, and in this situation, both things are absolutely true. And y'all, the timeline of it all is what really got me. 1 minute, the blogs are posting congratulations and hearts. The very next minute, the same blogs are reposting fight footage, the clips bleed into Karlissa's commentary, and somewhere underneath that avalanche is a woman in a hospital bed trying to learn how to breastfeed. Nevaeh did not get one single quiet news cycle for her son's arrival. Not one. The birth announcement had to share oxygen with brawl footage and family sides being picked in public. And that tells you everything about the environment this baby just entered, an environment where even his first breath was content, where the most sacred moment of his mother's life had to compete with chaos for the timeline's attention. Babies are supposed to slow the world down. In this family, the world doesn't slow down for anybody, it just adds another character to the cast list. Now let's talk about Blueface's mother, Karlissa, because this woman's loyalty has a revolving door and I need y'all to track the spin with me. Remember where we started. When Chrisean Rock first came into the picture, Karlissa could not stand her. Could not stand her. It was commentary, it was lives, it was interviews, Chrisean was the problem, Chrisean was the chaos, Chrisean was everything wrong with her son's life. That was the position. That was the brand. Fast forward to right now, and somehow, some way, Karlissa cannot stand Nevaeh, and all of a sudden Chrisean is the one getting the warmth. Make it make sense, y'all. How do you go from despising the first girl to despising the new girl to cozying back up to the first girl, without ever once landing on the actual common denominator, which is your own son and the circus he runs? I watch family dynamics like a hawk, and this one is loud. A mother's instincts are supposed to point toward her grandbaby. There is a brand new grandbaby in the picture, a fresh innocent little boy, and the energy from that side of the family is not celebration, it is alignment. Karlissa picked a lane, and the lane she picked does not have Nevaeh in it. Keep that in your back pocket, because it matters later when we talk about who is positioning to be in that house. Because here's what people keep forgetting about this family, the dysfunction is not a bug, it's the business. Karlissa herself has built an entire presence off commenting on her son's love life, the lives, the interviews, the back and forths. Every time Blueface rotates a woman, his mother's commentary becomes content, and content becomes money, and money becomes motive. So when I watch Karlissa publicly thaw toward Chrisean while icing out the woman who literally just delivered her grandchild, I don't see a mother protecting her son. I see a cast member reading the room. The audience drifted back toward Chrisean, the numbers followed, and suddenly so did Grandma. And I want to be fair, grandmothers are allowed to have feelings, and maybe there are things happening behind closed doors that we don't see. But the timing, y'all. The timing is the tell. A baby is days old and the public alignment is already shifting toward the woman who is not his mother. If you're Nevaeh, how do you ever feel safe sending that baby around that side of the family? How do you ever believe the room isn't being worked against you? These are the questions that don't trend, but they're the questions that actually shape a child's life. And I have to ask Karlissa something, y'all, I really do, because there was a night recently where the streets were talking about shots ringing out while Blueface was out. Real gunfire energy, real panic, real chaos. And I wonder, did that move her? Did that shake her? Because when it's your child, one headline is all it takes. Or, and I'm just putting this on the table, did she suspect what a lot of people suspect, which is that half of what we are watching is theater? Hold that thought. We are going there right now. Let's talk about the fight, y'all. The now infamous night where both Blueface and Chrisean Rock ended up on the ground. Same night. Same scene. Both of them. And I need you to sit with how strange that is. Because I did what I always do, I went back through the footage over and over and over, pausing, rewinding, squinting, trying to catch the exact moment, trying to identify exactly who dropped Blueface, and I could not see it. I could not tell you who did it, and I have watched it more times than I want to admit. What I could see, clearly, was the guy with the long dreads moving through the middle of everything. The same guy, if you listen to the streets, who has allegedly been the one feeding out locations. Dropping where Blueface is going to be. Dropping where Chrisean is going to be. And that detail, y'all, is the thread that unravels the whole sweater, because why is the same man adjacent to every chaotic moment? Who benefits from the chaos never ending? Because here is the theory that is all over the internet, and honestly, it is not crazy. What if some of this was staged? Hear me out before you fight me in the comments. Both Blueface and Chrisean go down in the same scuffle. Both camps immediately start using the language of self-defense. And what does a mutual self-defense narrative do? It makes charges messy. It makes prosecution annoying. It gives everybody a shield. A clean, tidy, nobody really loses night, except, allegedly, a female who got kicked upside the head in the middle of it, and yes, that is the word going around, and yes, that part is ugly and not theater at all if it's true. So you tell me. Was it a real brawl with real enemies? Or was it a choreographed mess where the one thing that went too far was the one thing nobody choreographed? I don't have the answer. But I have watched enough of this family's content cycle to know that when the story is too neat, the story usually ain't the whole story. And the fact that the man with the dreads keeps appearing at the center of the storm, the alleged location dropper, the chaos concierge, makes me ask the question out loud, is somebody getting paid to keep this pot boiling? Because this pot has not stopped boiling in years. And let's separate the rumor from the record for a second, because this part gets muddy fast. What we know, there was a public brawl, both Blueface and Chrisean ended up on the ground, and both sides walked away telling the same story, self-defense. Chrisean said she was defending herself. Blueface camp said he was defending himself. Two people, one fight, identical legal posture. That is either a miracle of mutual innocence or a talking point somebody workshopped. Now, layered on top of that is the allegation that refuses to go away, that in the middle of the scuffle, Blueface allegedly kicked a female upside the head. Allegedly. But multiple voices on the ground said it, and if any piece of that night was real, it was that piece, and that piece carries real legal weight. That's why the self-defense chorus matters so much. If everybody was defending themselves, then nobody was attacking anybody, and maybe, nobody gets charged. Convenient, right? And then stack the other night on top of it, the night the street swear shots rang out around Blueface's crew. Two violent episodes, back to back, both somehow leaving the principals legally cleaner than you'd expect. I've covered enough of these situations to tell you, when violence keeps producing content but never produces consequences, somebody is managing the chaos. Chaos this consistent is not an accident. It's a schedule. Now let me say something about the location dropper, because this is the part of the story that deserves its own spotlight. Think about what it means if the same man is allegedly handing out Blueface's whereabouts and Chrisean's whereabouts before these incidents pop off. That is not gossip, that is logistics. Somebody sharing locations is somebody enabling collisions, and collisions are content, and content is money. So follow that chain all the way down and ask the uncomfortable question, who profits when these two keep crashing into each other in public? Because it isn't Nevaeh. It isn't Junior. It isn't the new baby. The people who profit are the people with cameras rolling when the crash happens. And until somebody answers who was feeding out those locations and why, every single one of these random run-ins deserves a raised eyebrow. Random stopped being believable a long time ago, y'all. Meanwhile, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, Chrisean Rock is out here acting like the night was a badge of honor. Bragging energy. Victory lap energy. And then she said the thing that genuinely stopped me cold, y'all. The Whitney Houston comment. People have been calling her and Blueface the new Whitney and Bobby, and let's be clear, that comparison has never been a compliment, that comparison is about a famously toxic, famously destructive love that ended in tragedy. And Chrisean's response was that she's proud of it. Proud. To be called Whitney Houston. Lord, give me strength. Either she does not know the full story of Whitney and Bobby, the drugs, the chaos, the decline, the heartbreaking end, or she knows and thinks notoriety is notoriety. Whitney Houston was one of the greatest voices God ever made, and her love story is a cautionary tale carved into pop culture history, not a couple's costume. Being called the Whitney to somebody's Bobby is not a flex, it's a warning label. And watching Chrisean wear it like a crown tells me everything about how deep in the spell she still is. She is not distancing herself from the chaos. She is branding it. And since she wants to wear the comparison, let's actually teach the history, because clearly a lesson is needed. Whitney Houston was a generational talent, the voice of her era, untouchable at her peak. And her love story with Bobby Brown became one of the saddest slow-motion tragedies in entertainment history, the chaos, the addiction, the public unraveling, and an ending so heartbreaking that people still can't talk about it without lowering their voice. That is what the internet means when they call a couple the new Whitney and Bobby. It is not romance. It is a eulogy in advance. So when Chrisean hears that comparison and says she's proud, I don't hear confidence, I hear someone so deep inside the story that she can't see where the story ends. And the scariest part? Her fans cheered it. They flooded the comments with hearts and laughs, co-signing a comparison to a love that ended in devastation. That's what this ecosystem does. It takes warning signs and turns them into fan art. It takes sirens and calls them theme music. And the louder everybody claps, the harder it becomes for the person in the middle to ever break character and save herself. And can we talk about what Chrisean actually has riding on staying in character? Her entire public identity is welded to Blueface. The fame, the following, the streaming checks, the storylines, all of it runs through him. Walking away doesn't just mean losing a man, it means losing the machine that made her famous, and people will tolerate almost anything to avoid that kind of freefall. That's why she showed up at that baby shower. That's why she bragged about the fight. That's why she turned a tragic comparison into a badge. Every one of those moves looks unhinged from the outside, but from the inside of the machine, they're all the same move: stay in the frame. Stay in the story. Because in this economy, the worst thing that can happen to you isn't humiliation, it's being written out of the show. Chrisean Rock is fighting for screen time, y'all. And she's fighting a brand new baby for it. Now, Nevaeh. Sweet Nevaeh, brand new mama Nevaeh. I am going to talk directly to you for a minute, because everybody else on the internet is. Girl, and I say this with love, the door you need to be looking for is the exit, and the time to walk through it is while you still can with your baby in your arms. I am not saying run like the streets are saying run, actually, you know what? I am saying run. Don't stroll, don't wait for a sign, don't wait for him to change, go. And let me tell you exactly why the clock just started ticking louder. While you were pregnant, there was a softness around the situation. He kept the wildest parts of his world off your neck, at least a little, because you were carrying his child, and even a man like Blueface understands a pregnant woman is not to be stressed. But the baby is here now, Nevaeh. The buffer is gone. And who's to say the circus doesn't come straight to your front door? Because let's be honest, the ringmaster of that circus already showed up to the baby shower. Uninvited. Chrisean pulled up to a celebration of a baby that is not hers, for a man she shares a deeply complicated history with. Do you understand what that move means? That was not a social call. That was a flag planted in the ground. That was a message: I can get to you. And 9 times out of 10, the next stop is the house. Mark my words, if Nevaeh goes to visit family, if Nevaeh spends a night away, Chrisean is going to have her feet up in that living room. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can see it coming from a mile away, and if we can see it from out here, I pray she can see it from in there. And here's the cold economics of it, because people do not talk about the money part enough. They said Blueface and Chrisean pulled in $160,000 in a single night of streaming. One night. 160. Do you understand what that number does to a person's priorities? As long as that machine prints money like that, Blueface is going to feed that machine. That machine is drama, and the co-star of that machine is Chrisean, and a brand new mama asking for peace and quiet is, I'm sorry, bad for business. That is the part nobody wants to say out loud, so I'll say it. Nevaeh is not just competing with a woman, she is competing with a revenue stream. And revenue streams win more often than they should. His own fans, people who followed him for years and only found Nevaeh through him, are in her comments telling her to get out. His fans. Telling her it's not worth it. That has never happened before in this saga, y'all. The audience has always been the fuel of this circus, and now chunks of the audience are tapping out and telling the new girl to tap out too. When the crowd starts warning you, the show has gotten too dark. And if you want to understand how we got here, you have to understand the machine, because this did not start with Nevaeh and it won't end with her. Blueface figured out years ago, from the Zeus Network days, from the Crazy in Love era, from every toxic episode that ever trended, that his dysfunction is worth more than his music. The show literally built itself around watching women fight over him, and every spin of that will pay better than the last. That's why the 160 in a night matters so much. That number proves the old formula still prints. And a man does not retire a formula that prints $160,000 in a single evening because a new baby needs quiet. He just doesn't. So the new mama isn't stepping into a relationship, she's stepping into a production with an established co-star, an established audience, and an established storyline that her presence actually complicates. That's why so many of his longtime fans broke ranks to warn her. They have watched this machine consume women before. They watched Jaidyn get dragged through it. They watched Chrisean get broken by it and then get addicted to it. And now they're watching the opening credits of Season 3, and they know exactly how this genre goes. The audience isn't being cruel when they tell her to leave. They're being veterans. Now, I keep circling back to Nevaeh's story because it's the key to everything. Before Blueface, this young woman had nothing stable under her, homeless, estranged from family, no safety net of any kind. And then a famous, wealthy, charismatic man with a giant platform reaches down and lifts her up in front of millions of people. Do you understand what that feels like to somebody who has never had solid ground? It doesn't feel like a relationship, it feels like rescue. And rescue is the hardest thing in the world to walk away from, even when the rescuer's world is on fire. That's why the baby shower had no family on the guest list, there was no family to invite, or none she felt safe inviting. That's why she endures the disrespect on the streams with a smile, because the streams are the only solid floor she's ever stood on. I'm not diagnosing her, y'all, I'm humanizing her. Because the internet loves to scream, just leave, at women in situations like this, as if leaving is a light switch, when for somebody with nowhere to go, leaving is a leap into nothing. If we want Nevaeh to choose differently, we need to at least understand what she's actually choosing between. But, and this is the part that makes my heart heavy, I don't think she's going anywhere. And let me tell you why, because I did not know this until recently, Nevaeh was homeless before all this. Homeless, y'all. And there were family issues layered on top of that, the kind that don't get announced, the kind you only notice in the negative space. Did you clock that she didn't invite anybody to her own baby shower? Nobody. No family, no old friends, no village. That is not a party choice, that is a wound. And I say this with zero judgment, because life is hard and family is complicated, but a young woman with nowhere to fall back on, no cushion, no soft landing, is exactly the profile that gets swept up into situations like this one. The streams give you a pedestal. The pedestal gives you money and eyes and a feeling of finally matching. And then the same streams that lifted you up turn around and embarrass you, disrespect you, and pick at you in front of thousands of strangers, and you take it, because where else are you going to go? That is the trap, y'all. That is the whole trap. It's not love versus chaos. It's survival versus instability. And when survival is what's on the table, people will sit at a burning table for a long, long time. So no, I don't think Nevaeh leaves. I think she digs in, hopes the baby changes the math, and tries to outmother the madness. God, I hope I'm wrong. Now, let's go back to that baby shower for a minute, because I don't think people fully processed what they were looking at. First of all, Nevaeh didn't invite her own people. No family. No village. A baby shower with a guest list that thin is not a party, it's a distress signal. And then, into that already fragile moment, who arrives? Chrisean. Uninvited. Cameras everywhere. And within days of that, the street fight pops off, the same fight where, not coincidentally, locations had allegedly been passed around like party favors. Put the sequence together and it's chilling, show up to the celebration, remind everybody you can get close, and then let the chaos follow her out the door. That's not an ex acting out. That's an ex establishing proximity. And here's my prediction, and I want y'all to timestamp it and come back and tell me if I was wrong. Within weeks, we will hear about Chrisean being at the house. First it'll be, she just came to see Blueface. Then it'll be overnight. Then it'll be her things in the corner of a live stream. I've watched this show long enough to know the episode order. And the only thing that interrupts a schedule like that is somebody walking off the set entirely, which is why everybody with sense is begging Nevaeh to do exactly that, while her leverage and her baby's fresh start are still hers to claim. Let me take a breath, y'all, and tell you something personal for a second, because all this baby talk has me in my feelings. When I was pregnant with my son, I went 2 weeks past my due date. 2 full weeks. I was walking around that house like, Lord, is this boy ever coming out? He was entirely too comfortable in there. And watching Nevaeh's pregnancy stretch on and on brought that feeling right back, that weird, swollen, exhausted limbo where the whole world is waiting on one little person to make their entrance. Babies will do that to you. They run on their own schedule and they do not care about your plans. And you know, thinking about babies always takes me back to when my mama and I used to do foster care. Oh my goodness, y'all. Babies. That is mostly who came through our door, babies. Because the system is overflowing with them. There are so many little ones who need a safe pair of arms, and a lot of parents who, for whatever reason, and sometimes the reasons are stacked against them, I won't pretend the system is fair, can't or won't fight to get them back. If you have love to give and room in your home, call your local child and family services, take the classes, look into it. There is a baby out there who needs exactly what you have. That's all I'll say on that, but I had to say it. Okay. Back to the mess, because the mess has one more chapter and it's the heaviest one. Chrisean Jr. Y'all know we cannot close this conversation without talking about Junior. Because here's what ties this whole tangled story into one heartbreaking bow. Blueface already has a son in the middle of this, and that baby's condition is the wound nobody in this family wants to own. The way Chrisean carried that pregnancy, the drinking, the partying, all of it documented in real time on those same streams, and now Junior is here, and Junior is struggling, and everybody can see it, and the accountability is nowhere. Nowhere. She will still look dead in a camera and say she wasn't drinking. On camera. Where the footage lives. Where we all watched it happen. And that, y'all, is the difference between a mistake and a pattern. A mistake says I did it, I'm sorry, I'm getting help. A pattern says prove it, and then keeps the camera rolling. And now Blueface, the same Blueface grinning over newborn Jonathan Jr., is drifting back toward the very person at the center of that heartbreak. His mother is warming back up to the same person. The money is flowing with the same person. Do I think Blueface and Chrisean reunite for real? I don't. Not fully. But do I think the orbit continues, the fights continue, the streams continue, the chaos continues? Absolutely. Because chaos is the product, and the product sells. And I keep coming back to Junior, y'all, because Junior is the preview. Junior is what happens when this machine runs all the way through a pregnancy and out the other side. A beautiful, innocent little boy who is now facing challenges he never chose, while the adults around him argue about footage instead of facing facts. And watch how the accountability dodge works, because it's the same move every time: deny the drinking, deny the partying, blame the blogs, blame the haters, blame the timeline, anything, everything, except the mirror. Meanwhile Blueface, who has every right to be the loudest voice demanding accountability for his son's condition, is instead drifting back toward the person at the center of it because the streams are lucrative and the nostalgia is content. What does that teach this family about consequences? What does it teach the audience? And most importantly, what does it promise Jonathan Jr.? Because babies become what their environment normalizes. Junior was born into the war and the war swallowed him. Now here comes another little boy, same last name, same circus, same cameras already pointed at his crib. If nobody breaks the pattern doesn't just repeat, it gets worse, because it gets more practiced. That's not me being dramatic. That's me reading the tape. So let's land this plane, y'all. A baby is here. That part is beautiful. Jonathan Jr. did not ask for any of this, not the fame, not the cameras, not the war between the women in his father's life, not a grandmother picking sides before his first doctor's appointment. He deserves quiet. He deserves boring. He deserves a childhood that never once trends. And Nevaeh, congratulations, truly. You made it through a pregnancy that felt like it lasted 2 years, in the middle of a circus, with almost no one in your corner, and you delivered a healthy boy. That is strength. Now show us the strength that matters more. Decide what your son's normal is going to be, because right now, today, this week, that decision is still yours. It will not always be. And for everybody watching this unfold in real time, here's what to keep your eyes on over the next few weeks, because the tells will come fast. Watch the house, whether Chrisean starts appearing in the background of Blueface streams. Watch Karlissa's lives, whether the warmth toward Chrisean turns into open shots at Nevaeh now that the postpartum sympathy window is closing. Watch the court situation from the fight, whether the self-defense story holds or whether that alleged kick comes back with paperwork attached. And watch Nevaeh's own pages, because when a new mama in this position goes quiet, it's either peace or it's pressure, and we'll be able to tell which one by what surfaces next. This story moves fast, it moves dirty, and it never moves in a straight line, but it always leaves footprints. And we will be here reading every single one of them. And to Blueface, if any piece of this ever crosses your timeline, and we both know how the internet works, so it might, hear this in the spirit it's given, you have a second chance sitting in your arms right now. Whatever happened with Junior broke everybody's heart, yours included, whether you show it or not. This new baby is a reset button that most people in your position never get. The streams will still be there. The money will still print. But a son only has one first year, one first smile, one first word, and the camera doesn't make those moments richer, it makes them cheaper. You don't have to pick between the bag and the baby, but you do have to pick what the baby grows up watching. Right now, today, that choice is still in your hands. Don't let the machine choose for you. And now I want to hear from y'all, because this one has layers. First, do you believe the double knockdown was real street business, or was it staged for the self-defense shield? Say it with your chest in the comments. Second, Chrisean calling the Whitney and Bobby comparison an honor, is that delusion, is that branding, or is that a cry for help wearing a costume? I genuinely want to know what you think. And third, the big one, if you were Nevaeh's friend, her real friend, sitting across from her at a kitchen table right now, what do you tell her? Stay and build a family, or take the baby and build a life. The comments are about to be a war zone and I'll be in there reading every single one. And one more thing before we get to the close, the part of this that nobody in the blogs wanted to touch. Every adult in this story is playing to a camera. Blueface tender dad moment. Posted. Chrisean's Whitney and Bobby pride. Streamed. Karlissa's shifting allegiances. Broadcast. Even the congratulations and the warnings and the war zones in the comments, it's all performance layered on performance. And in the middle of all that performing sits a little boy who cannot consent to any of it. Jonathan Jr. is days old and he already has a digital footprint he never asked for, an audience invested in his parents' dysfunction, and a name that ties him to a storyline older than he is. I've said it before on this channel and I'll say it again, the children of the content economy are the ones who never get a vote. So when you're in the comments tonight, and I know you will be, remember that the only person in this saga who deserves zero criticism and total protection is the one who can't read any of it yet. Guard that energy. Guard it hard. Congratulations again to Nevaeh and Blueface on baby Jonathan Jr., that little boy is the only innocent person in this entire story, and I am rooting for him harder than I have ever rooted for anything in this saga. Remember that sweet smile I told you about at the very top of this video, Blueface cradling his son like the world was soft. Hold that image. Because everything else we talked about tonight is the world waiting outside that hospital room, and whether that world gets to touch that baby is entirely up to the two people who brought him here. If you made it this far, you're real family now, like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell, because this story is nowhere near over. There's a whole other layer to the baby shower footage that I am breaking down in the next video. What the cameras caught before Chrisean even walked through that door will genuinely shock you, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Y'all take care of yourselves, take care of the babies, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. And y'all, one last thought before I go, because I know how this story gets digested. Tonight, this will all get chopped into clips, stripped of context, and thrown back onto the timeline as entertainment. Somebody will meme the congratulations. Somebody will meme the fight. Somebody will turn Nevaeh's worst moment into a sound. And tomorrow the cycle spins again, because it always does. But every so often, one of these stories stops being entertainment the second a baby enters it, and this is one of those times. So laugh at the circus if you must, argue in the comments all night long, pick your sides and ride for them. Just don't lose the plot. A child was born this week, and everything that happens next, the house, the streams, the ex, the grandmother, all of it, is either building his world or breaking it. There is no neutral option. There never was. I've said my piece. The floor is yours.